Welcome back to my animal education series. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about feet, but not in the weird way. So we're talking about how geckos and frogs just seem to magically stick to walls and glass and pretty much everything. As you might have noticed, I have several species of arboreal geckos. I have a giant day gecko, a toki gecko, a golden gecko, and a crested gecko. I also have a leopard gecko, but that is a terrestrial species, so we're not going to worry about her right now. But with my arboreal geckos, they are on the glass all the time. So I was always thinking to myself, how exactly do geckos do that? I wanted to really research that and understand how these geckos did that. So I got started. Basically, we get down to the feet, where I have tiny hairs called seta. If that is pronounced wrong, please don't hold it against me. I watched a British guy on YouTube, and that's how he pronounced it, so that's how I'm going to pronounce it. That's seta. But on these seta, there's even smaller hairs called spatulae, which I'm pretty sure that's pronounced right. And if not, again, don't hold it against me. It was the same British guy. But these spatulae are in all sorts of different directions, kind of going off everywhere off of the seta. And these are helping the gecko stick to it by basically increasing the surface area of their feet. But just because you have an expanded surface area on your foot, or even your hand, doesn't mean you're going to stick to things. If I put my hand up on a piece of glass, does not mean I'm going to be all Spider-Man and climb up a skyscraper. That's not how that works. These hairs on a gecko's foot are so small that they interact on a molecular level with the surface that they're walking on, which that alone is crazy to me. The force that they use is called the van der Waals force. I had no clue what that was, so I had to watch a couple of college physics classes on YouTube to kind of understand what it was. Basically, most of it doesn't even apply to geckos. Basically, only the London dispersion force, which is the main part of the force, of the van der Waals force, sorry. These hairs are reacting to the surface that the gecko is walking on a molecular level, which to me is absolutely crazy. Again, without getting too sciencey behind this, I feel this is the best way to describe it. There are positive ions on the gecko's spatulae, and around that positive ion there are negative electrons. Same thing with the surface. There's a positive ion, and then there are negative electrons. When the gecko's foot here and the surface here come into contact, the negative electrons on the spatulae or on the gecko's foot try to connect with the positive ion on the surface, but the electrons that are on the surface are also at the same time repelling the electrons, because negative does not like negative. It's like playing with a magnet. The same poles do not go together. It's the same thing here. The negative electrons don't want to meet up with the other ones, but the gecko's foot is trying to connect with the positive ion. But since the electrons are also trying to repel at the same time, it is not a permanent bond. So it is just a temporary molecular bond that the gecko's foot is creating with the surface. So for a little bit, they are kind of sort of connected. But since it is temporary, as soon as the gecko pulls his foot away, it's trying to walk or climb or whatever it's doing, the temporary bond would just break and life continues as normal. Pardon the dog barking in the background every once in a while. But this is why geckos cannot stick to Teflon. Teflon is made out of mostly fluorine, and fluorine is electronegative. So no matter what, they repel electrons. So as the gecko's foot comes in contact with it, the electrons are trying to connect, but is repelling them the entire time. Gecko cannot climb on Teflon. So if you don't want a gecko climbing around your house or two above a certain point, put some Teflon on there and the gecko can't go anywhere. Also, when a surface is wet, you might notice when you spray down your gecko's enclosure that it's having a hard time walking on the glass. That barrier of water is repelling the electrons on the gecko's foot, and it's not allowing that bond to happen, so that the gecko will not form the bond at all and not be able to stick to the glass. It has to stick to branches, things like that have textures for it to climb on. Now, after all that sciencey stuff that I hurt my brain trying to learn, let's move on to frogs, which is a lot simpler. I also have many species of arboreal tree frogs. I have green tree frogs, white tree frogs, clown frogs, and red-eye tree frogs. The science behind how they stick to the glass is a lot easier than geckos. Tree frogs in general are typically wet or at least moist, and with their specially adapted toes, They stick onto the glass or whatever surface, and it creates a small suction. That is it. Basically, it's just a small suction cup on each end of their toes, and that helps them stick to things. Similar story as with the geckos. If there's water on it, they can't create the proper suction, and they slide down the glass. That was a lot less explaining and a lot better, and a lot easier research for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. Kind of talking about something a little different here, and some sciencey stuff and physics for once on the channel. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a big thumbs up down below, subscribe to my channel, and also check out my Instagram @ColeShirk. As always, I'll see you next week.